too early because they think the next one is going to be the one that's going to make a better impact, a greater impact, or is truly going to work. Ever felt like this? Because I was just finishing my workout and I had this sort of epiphany. Sometimes we know what we know, but we never really put two and two together. So a lot of times, and I'm a fault for this as well. A lot of times we are jumping from pro workout program to program because we see all these different influencers, maybe our favorite trainers, on all these social media channels, and there's always going to be a new one, like a new workout, and something that looks brand new, never done before, and we just quit what we're doing at the moment to jump on the bandwagon to get started on this new better program, like the one that we were just now doing wasn't working. But to be honest, the best program is always the one that you're actually going to stick with and that you're consistent with. um, we have such a limited attention span this time and day, right, where we get bored very easily, and I'm at fault of that too, right? I get bored doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it becomes frustrating, especially when you have certain goals for yourself in mind, but then you feel as though you're not actually making any progress because society, or maybe like all these different programs have told you in the past, like, it's only going to take X amount of days and you are going to lose X amount of weight or put on X amount of you know uh, muscle mass and so forth. And and sometimes, now looking back, compared to where I when I started, I would specifically jump on these new programs and I will do them, from start to finish. And I just did whatever the trainer essentially was telling me to do. And some of these moves were really, really hard. And even as a complete newbie, I oftentimes thought these moves are way more elaborate than me as a newbie think they should be, right? But here's the kicker. When you really pay attention, it's those the programs essentially are not new, right? They only incorporate very traditional workout moves, be it weightlifting workouts or cardio hit type of movements, right? They basically, when they first, let's back in the day, whenever that was, somebody came and invented these moves, right? And every program since then is essentially building on those basic moves. Why? Because they actually work. Because they work, and we are putting them together in different packages and putting maybe a different face to it, a different trainer, a different label, a different, workout name, program, whatever it is, right? And I get it. That's exciting. And I am at fault. I jump on these things because I'm like, oh, this looks exciting, right? But really, we're building on the same types of moves because they work. And we often get bored because we're repeating the same moves over and over again, doing in rotation, of course. But we feel like there needs to be more. It needs to be more exciting. It needs to have something better. The jump needs to be higher. Whatever. But really, at the end of the day, it's just becomes about you are in charge of the variety, right? You are in charge of truly making progress with these workout programs. And that could be, let's say it's a weightlifting workout. So you add heavier weights, or you increase your time under tension, or you do more reps, or you go into failure, or there's all these different varieties of how to do the moves essentially a little bit differently. But now looking back, some of these moves that I feel that they're way more elaborate than they have to be. Like, if you cannot replicate these moves, meaning they seem almost unrealistic because they're so, like, I don't know, superhero style types of moves, just to essentially do like a lunge or squat or whatever it is, right? Presses, if they are way too elaborate, like in how they're being, you know, done, then I personally feel like it makes it very difficult to stick with a program because it there's a point where it becomes so unrealistic that we almost feel like we can't do this, right? Like when you go like, oh, this is way too much of a complicated move just to do a squat, a lunge, a press, or whatever. And if it is like that, we oftentimes walk away because we are not actually, we're, it's almost like we're doing it for performance purposes and not so much for actual change in body composition. And because of that, we are increasing our risk for injuries. I'm not an expert, but that's just how I personally feel. So I have learned over the years that if a move just, I'm assessing it. And if I feel as though, okay, what they're really trying to do is XYZ move, then I'm just going to do the move how it's traditionally done because I don't feel like I need to do this crazy, variation of it and then potentially hurt myself, or like I'm not actually able to maybe lift a lot of weights or something, like sometimes they have these weird combo moves, and I love combination moves, don't get me wrong, but if we're targeting with the combo moves like two different muscle groups like upper lower body, then I know I can lift probably heavier for my lower body, but I can't do it with to my upper body. Like I can maybe lift really heavy in my squats, but then I can't lift the same weight in this combination move to do like overhead presses or something like that. So, so we don't need to like do that. Just cut them in half and do one muscle group at a time so that you can really focus in on, the body mind connection. I know this sounds crazy, but it's really true. If you focus in on which part of your body you're working on, it makes a tremendous difference in how well you actually perform that movement. And if you have crazy moves, you're more worried about, following along with this crazy move than actually working out whatever body part, upper lower body type of thing that you're like meant to be doing. So again, like, we're always chasing like the next, workout. So like, yes, to your point, Sir Jacob, when we're doing like push-ups, right? Push-ups are hard. Like I don't care like what anybody says, especially when you're first starting out. It is, lift your body, lift your life. Like it is, if you've never done a push up and, and you all of a sudden are faced with pushing yourself off the ground, essentially, that's hard. And then you want to do it in proper form. So we don't have to straight from the get go do push ups where we clap our hands or where we fly in the air or like roll over or, like it doesn't have to be like that. If you are so like doing such a great job at push-ups and you are just can pump them out in perfect form like to no end, then a good for you, um right, because you have like achieved a level of athlete, like just being an athlete, because I just gonna like I know I'm gonna like mess this word up, so but like you're on a complete different level than somebody coming in from the very beginning. So I think just doing a basic push-up correctly um is going to do just fine for what you're trying to accomplish. Yes, I know there's variation of like, narrow push up, regular push up, wide push up, and that sort of thing. But I don't think we need to go into like any kind of crazy like movements. Hi, Kay. Like, what I'm saying? So don't necessarily blame the program and or quit the program unless it's really like you feel completely overwhelmed and overstimulated and you can't follow along. First of all, if you can't follow along, just like pause. That's the beauty of a pause button, right? Especially when you do streaming workouts, on demand workouts, like push the pause button. Watch them first, see what they're actually trying to do with this move. And it's especially important when you first start out to really just watch, right? Because you want to get your form right, or whatever. We can always all do better with form, right? But like, look what they're trying to accomplish. And if you don't want to do crazy like variation of that basic move, um then just do the basic move. It's really, you know just do the basic move, because you're going to get more out of it. So don't necessarily always chase after program. Really finish one from start to beginning, and track your progress. Like, track your weights, like how much are you picking up, or if it's more cardio based or hit based or something like that, then track your level of burnout, meaning like how long can you do certain moves until you need to take a break, right? Or until your form starts slipping away, and like that kind of stuff. There's always ways to track certain moves. So don't give up on the program itself, but just really like stick with it, because that's really where you're going to see the progress, by sticking with something, tracking it. And like, it's not the program, it's just sticking with it or not, because there's not a miracle program out there, that in 2 weeks is going to give you this shredded body. It takes time, right? It takes time to work up like endurance, to work on grip strength, right? Because sometimes we feel like we can maybe lift heavier, but our grip strength is not there yet, right? So it gives up before maybe our legs would give up or something like that. So it's, again, don't do the switcheroo all the time. Like, really like stick with a true program, follow it from the very beginning to the end, because that's where really you're going to see progress. And you know when we first starting out, like, sometimes it's hard like to figure out what we actually like. Do we like more of a cardio based workout? Do we like more of a lifting type of workout? My personal opinion, do both. Like, both are really important. So if you can switch it up, between those two styles of workouts, definitely do that. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, right? Because again, the original traditional moves are being repackaged, and they add like certain sparkles and bows and ribbons to it, but we are still doing essentially the same traditional move. Why? Because it works. Not that you're necessarily be a bodybuilder, I certainly am not, but like, when we look at those people and we really pay attention, for instance, they do all those moves, the traditional moves, over and over and over and over again, because it works. And the only thing that they might change is the amount of weight that they're lifting, or the amount, or the reps, or the, again, like the time under tension or whatnot. Or maybe they're switching up the days, like what body part they're working on more often versus less, and so forth. But just try it out. Don't give up. If you feel like, there's a person out there that is, including maybe yourself, who's like switching all the time because they think the next one, the new sparkly one is the better one. No. The best one is the one that you stick with, and you focus and you go all in on it. Don't go crazy, because you want it to be realistic. You want it to actually be something that you can incorporate in your daily schedule, in your weekly schedule, whatever it may be. But just stick with it, because there's no magic perfect one. It's the one that you stick with is the one. So if this is relatable at all, like, share it, share this clip, and let that other person know who is jumping all the time from one to the next, and they don't see results, then it's most likely because you're not sticking with it long enough. And I know sometimes it can be daunting also, because like, we want everything like instant gratification, right? We want to see the change like straight away, after a week, after 2 weeks, and so forth. But to really see like a difference in body composition, you have to at least stick with something for a good 2 to 3 months. to really see progress. You're gonna feel it much earlier than you will see it, and before maybe other people will see it. So don't get discouraged by these superficial markers, aka, standing on the scale and not maybe seeing the numbers move to a level where you want them to move. And especially on an everyday, because everybody fluctuates on a regular to begin with. So to just focus on that one superficial marker of a number on the scale is not going to be a good motivator, because there are many other markers that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so yeah, my best advice honestly is to stick with it. And if you have experienced anything similar yourself, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear more about it, and maybe how you have overcome that, or what changes that you've made personally to stop jumping from one program to another. And let me know what maybe you have found as your one that you have been with or doing for a really long time, and you truly enjoy, because I would love to know about it, and I'm sure others will too. So sharing is caring. All right, great. Thanks, guys.